Before we kick things off this week, I want to draw your attention to a charity campaign called Earth to India. With the goal of inspiring people, changing the world, and raising $50,000 for charity, 3 guys aim to drive a 7-horsepower rickshaw 3,000 kilometers across India. It's ambitious, it's audacious, and it's exactly the sort of thing this episode is about. To find out more about Earth to India and to donate to their cause, visit earthtoindia.com and facebook.com/Earth to India. Hello and welcome to the Musician's Map podcast. I'm Kane Power. This is a very special episode, and I just know that you're going to love it. Not only does the episode apply to musicians, I think this episode applies to all humans. As a musician, it's likely you'll dream of things like fame and fortune. We all have, right? Sometimes life gets in the way. You get older, things like work and family might cause us to lose sight of the goals, dreams, and motivations that once raged inside of us until they gradually become inconsequential or extinguish entirely. Or sometimes our dreams simply change as we do. So this week we're talking about dreams, goals, and failure. We discuss the importance of goals, how to set them and follow through, and how your dreams dictate the path of your life. To help guide and inspire us, my very special guest this week is Matty Lovell. Matty is a musician, traveller, business owner, blogger, teacher, and as you're about to find out, inspirational speaker. Put simply, Matty is a storytelling adventurer and entrepreneur with a desire to learn and do as much as possible. We caught up earlier today over Skype. Matty, welcome to the podcast. Great to see you.
Thank you so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
So, today we're talking about goals and dreams and failure in general. But I want us to try and apply it to the life of musicians in particular, since that is our target audience, which shouldn't be too hard. We are both musicians, and we both have been through a lot of the stuff that we're about to talk about. But perhaps we could start for the listeners with your story. Maybe you could tell us about your journey over the last 8 or 9 years. Obviously, maybe a condensed version.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. So as far as what's probably relevant to people that are listening and watching is that I spent about 9 years with the band. Started in I think when I was the very last year of high school. It all sort of started happening, and met a good bunch of a couple of guys, and we sort of started doing that. I worked as well. It wasn't full time or anything. We spent, like I said, about 8 years playing. It was great. We had an epic time. And then about 6 years ago, we had the earthquakes in Christchurch, which I was caught up in the middle of, and then we sort of at the end of that decided to, my partner and I sort of had tried to figure out what we wanted to do. There wasn't much opportunity here in Christchurch, even particularly as a musician, like as far as say, like there was no venues, like they fell down sort of thing. So, we sort of, Sally and I looked at what we wanted to do, and we looked at sort of finding somewhere to move. We ended up moving overseas. We ended up spending the better part of 4 years away, traveling around. We worked relatively hard in the last couple of years working on these boats, and we both sort of decided that if we're going to work so hard, and we obviously can put in the hours and the work that we wanted to, it might as well be, we might as well do it for ourselves. If I'm going to work 16 hours a day, I might as well be our name at the bottom of the ticket sort of thing. So we came back. We wanted to jump into our own business. We didn't really care too much what it was. I just sort of I was really focused on being in charge of my own destiny. So we bought a business in the fitness industry, which was not something, again, that I'd ever sort of really been a part of before, but jumped into that. Spent the last 2 years doing that, and as such, I've just sort of learned, a few different things over that time, and I sort of, probably the most important one I learned was that you've got to be constantly improving. Like your reality is completely in proportion to what you're learning and how you're growing. So I became pretty addicted to sort of like reading and listening to podcasts and doing whatever I could to sort of grow and get better. And I started to find mentors and started to work with them, and then sort of mastermind groups, and just started to really work on myself first, and then as such, the all sort of areas of my life sort of started to improve, from the business to marriage to finances to everything. So that's sort of probably the condensed version, as much as sort of led me here, and now I just sort of try and share my journey through business and through life and the things that I'm doing, in the hope that it sort of may help someone else or that's in the same sort of situation. I always think that particularly when I got into business, that I knew very little about it, and if someone was sort of doing what I'm doing now, just showing that if I can do it, then anyone can do it, sort of thing, and that would have helped me back then. So it's not something I do to, I'm not sort of in the education space. I don't try and teach people or anything, but I just share what's going on for me, and the hope that may help someone else that was in my position a couple of years ago.
Yeah, man, and that's part of the reason why I've asked you to come on the podcast. That sharing is right at the heart of what Musicians Map is all about. Getting people like yourself willing to share and kind of hopefully inspire and encourage. Sharing knowledge, I think, is absolutely the key. And I'm wondering if you would like to share your goals, just the goals that you have currently. I'll share mine if you're keen to share yours.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm pretty active in my goal setting. Like I sort of learned that you have to sort of know what you're trying to do, and you have to be pretty clear about where you're going, and have a really clear vision about what you're trying to do in order to get there. It's sort of, otherwise you're just sort of floundering around and hoping, So I learned to get off the hopium is the phrase I heard. So I'm pretty clear on what I want to do. So each quarter I review a business plan for myself and for the business, obviously. But each year I sort of have a list of things that I sort of want to achieve throughout the year. So this year I'll go over my ones that I had for you. It was to double my income, to have a second business, to have 4 income streams, to do 20 plasma donations. I give blood for the rare types. I give plasma, to own another house, to spend 2 months traveling, to do 2 personal development courses, to finish my skydiving license, to read 8 books, to run a sub 145 half marathon, to 5 speaking engagements, 4 mentors with quarterly catch-ups, to update my blog monthly, to follow my nutrition scheme that I do, my sort of lifestyle plan with that, do that 6 days a week. And yeah, that sort of encompasses what I sort of set out to do. And the reason I do this is because I found a bucket list that I wrote 10 years ago, and when I left university in 2007, and I read it at the start of this year, and I'd actually realized that I'd done most of the stuff on it. And this year I've really been really intentional about my planning, and just looking through the goals, and it's amazing to see that I'm actually doing really well on it. And hey, I'm not going to get all of them, but if I can achieve 80% of the things that I want to each year, that sort of equates to achieving 80% of the things that I want to in my life. And hey, if I can do that, then I'll be really happy. Yeah. So that's what I've got anyway. Those are my goals for the year.
Dude, that's incredible. That's so. Firstly, I want to say that it seems like you're really, really reaching out, and kind of just taking what you want. And I think that the listeners and myself could learn a lot just from hearing your list, and applying it to their own situation or their own what they want from their music career. Really just writing down exactly what you want. I mean, the stuff that I've written down, I was writing more sort of immediate term specific goals. Things like working on improving the podcast in every way that I can, reaching 1,000 weekly listens, and as far as like life, living more in the present, things like reading more, spending more time outside away from the desk, sort of more general focused, and even just hearing your list, I'm writing a note for myself to, I refer to my business plan and things like that, but I need to get better at it. Get better.
Betterment is a phrase that my vision or my purpose, I sort of define it is to live an epic life, passionately pursuing betterment and contribution. I think that the people that are constantly improving are the ones that that have a lifelong dedication to learning and trying to improve. Is the ones that really get ahead. And like what you're saying, like I like to just create your ideal life. That's what I've learned is that no one's going to do it for you. There's no magic person. There's no website that's going to turn up and unlock all this for you. There's no someone's coming to the rescue. This is not a fairy tale. This is life. You get into it. Get it done. And so what I did is how I sort of came up with that is I just created my ideal life. So I'd encourage people to do this. It's quite a cool exercise. It only takes about 10 minutes. You can do it in a time frame you want. I did 10 years. So I went 2027. I said, what does my life look like? Like to the detail, like the more specific you are, the better. I wrote down exactly what I would be doing, how I'd be doing it, what a day in my life would look like. Cars aren't important to me, but what car I drive, the houses I'd own, the businesses I'd own, the people that would be in my life, my family, I'm really passionate about having a holistic approach to success. It's not for me, it's not just about a business or, a car. It's really about people and life and relationships and things as well. And so I'm really, really intentional about what that looked like, to where my house was, to all that sort of stuff. The more specific you can do, the better. And if you can define that, and if you can write that out and put it into words, it's a really powerful thing because it draws you into it. All of a sudden, you sort of know what you're going towards, and then I just work backwards. And it's reverse engineering is the term. Traditionally we go the other way. We sort of do our best at each time, trying to build on each day and get better and better, which is great, trying to hopefully get somewhere one day that sort of makes us happy. But what I've learned is just reverse engineer that. Take what you want, define it, build it, know it so well, what it looks like, feels like, smells like, tastes like, sounds like when you're there, and just work backwards from there. All right, what's the process for me to get there? How can I get there? So that's 10 years. Let's work back to 5 years, halfway. Where do I need to be in 5 years? Where do I need to be in 2 years, 1 year? All right, well, what's the next 6 months? What does the next 3 months? What does the next week look like? If I'm to get there in 10 years' time, where would be the best place to start? And how can I do that this week? And then getting really intentional and specific around that. And I think that's the key, and that's where what a lot of people don't do. And even in I know this is for musicians and things. And all right, well, define what you want your band, your career, your 5 years to look like. Like, do you want to be playing on the biggest stages in the world? Do you want to just be touring with your friends? Do you want to be a recording artist? Do you want to be a producer? Whatever it is, what is important to you? And just reverse engineer that and say, all right, well, what's the process of me getting from here, where I am now, to where I want to be?
That's such great advice, man. So do you think it's, is it visualization that's kind of creating that process? Is that what pushes you along, or is it seeing it written down on a piece of paper?
I think that depends on the person. There's some people that would be a visual learner, or that's their sort of preferred medium, I guess. But whatever works for you. Like for me, I do a number of different things. Obviously, defining that, like I have a like I said, I've written that down, my sort of ideal life, and then I have it in a vision board as well. So I have a vision board, sits above my desk. I go over it every morning on my phone as well. I've got a pretty strict morning routine. I go through that, and so each day I'm not only reading but seeing exactly what that life looks like as well. And that's what keeps you going, I guess. And visualization is one. There's a number of different books around things that you can do to help certain things like this, and just really whatever works for you.
But it's having something clear and defined to achieve and
Yes,
to focus
absolutely.
on.
Defining exactly what it is, what it looks like. The clearer you can be, the more likely you are to get there. Like if you're, I think the same with goals as well. Like if it's like, don't get me wrong, I like goals when it's like, oh, I want to get better at podcasting. That's a cool one, for example. But if you said, I want to have 10,000 weekly listeners to my podcast, to get to that, you will have to get better at podcasting. You know what I mean? And that's a measure. That's a stick in the ground, and you've defined it. And you said, all right, well, in a year's time, I want to have 10,000 weekly listeners. You've put a line in the sand. You've given yourself what it looks like, and you said, that's my ideal life. How do I need to get there? And then, as such, you will get better at podcasting to get there.
So, how did you come up with this? How did you your goals specifically? How did you set them? Did you spend some time soul searching? Did you create a big brainstorm? Like, what was the first?
I literally just sat down one day and I wrote out my ideal life for 2027. I wrote down exactly what I wanted it to look like.
Yep.
That's literally all I did. And I probably, it's in my journal here. I write down a lot of stuff. I'm always writing. And I just literally just wrote it down 2 or 3 pages. It's fun. Like, it's a fun exercise. Like, it shouldn't be a chore. Like, it's like a dream. You know what I mean? It's like, I'll define, like, what's the best possible outcome of my life? You know, like, if someone came to me and said that you're going to achieve absolutely everything you want in the next 10 years, you're going to be exactly where you are, what would that be? And just write that down. Like, it's an exciting question.
And is it?
And then, sorry, keep going.
Is it something that's realistic? Are you thinking about realism? Are you thinking, no, I don't want to get too carried away. I won't say 10 million. I'll say 1 million. Is that come into it at all, or is it just wild?
Yeah, well, I think the SMART goal setting. That sort of acronym is always good, and it's got to be realistic. You know what I mean? Like, I think that it's good. Saying that I'm going to be a billionaire in a year, like, or or you're going to have 6 billion listeners to your podcast in the next 3 months. Like, that's silly. You know what I mean? You do have to be realistic, but also I think there's a balance of pushing yourself. And sort of redefining what you think is possible, but also in being a bit realistic. I think that, like, one advantage of thinking really big is it forces you to think different. So there's a rule called, the 10x rule. It's essentially just 10 times. All right. So if you were to, your goal you just said before was to have 1,000 podcast listeners, for example. If we said, all right, let's 10x that, 10,000, you automatically are forced to think differently, because the way you would get from where you are now to 1,000 weekly listeners to whereas the way you would go from where you are now to 10,000 weekly listeners is entirely different. You have to be thinking on a different level to 10x your listenership. You know what I mean? And when that's with your goal or whatever it is you're trying to achieve, you're forced to think differently, and you start thinking in a completely different way. Like, it's that's why one of my goals this year was to double my income. Like, honestly, it's not going to happen this year. I'm not going to do it. But, like, if I'm forced to think differently, it's all right.
Yeah.
Well, I can't just ask for a pay rise. I own my own business, but for people that don't, you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't just, if you wanted to set your goal as double your income in the next 12 months and you worked with someone, you can't just aim for a pay rise. And that, if you was to go, I want to go from $50,000 to $55,000 this year, that's like, all right, well, I'll work really hard and get a pay rise, or I'll, provide more value, or I'll pick up an extra job, or I'll find another income stream, or whatever it is. But if you say that, all right, I want to double, I want $100,000. The whole game is different. The way you have to think about it is completely different. And when you start thinking differently, that's when you start to get different results.
Man, so okay, so let's move on from that and kind of work on this. What actual steps you take? What are the realistic kind of things? Is it things? Do you need to be consistent in your actions? Obviously, you need to be disciplined. If you're not just going to go, I want to double my income this year, or I want to become the best guitar player in my city or my town within the next year. You need certain attributes to do that. What do you think those are?
That's a really good question. I think you have to take a step back before you start looking at action, and that's to have a plan. So I think it comes in 3 processes. Firstly, you got to have the mindset. then you've got to have the plan, then you've got to have the discipline to do it. So, if you've got the mindset and you believe in what you're doing, and you are passionate about it and you're willing to work for it, then you've got to have a plan, and you've got to know where you're going. And I think the best advice I've been given around this is if you want to do something, go and find someone that is doing or has done what you're trying to do and ask them how to do it. I can't reinforce that enough with the people that listen to this. Find someone that is doing or has done what you are trying to do and ask them how to do it. Like, it is that simple. Unless you are Elon Musk and you are trying to land a rocket for, or design space travel for human beings, like, someone has done what you were trying to do before. Like, for you, someone has made a podcast before and got 1,000 listeners in a week. For people that listen to this, bands have made it before, producers have made it before, people have made it before. Like, and I put that in inverted commas, but whatever you're trying to do, whatever your goal is, just find someone that has done that and simply reach out to them, and it can be, you've got to add value to them for them to really want to help you. But I've really found that and hey, if they won't help you, just copy them. Just look at what they're doing. Like, people are so active on social media now, like, just listen to them and follow them and copy them, like it doesn't matter what space you're in, whether you're a musician or you're a business owner or you're a aspiring photographer or a podcaster, like just find someone that is doing or has done what you are trying to do. Ask them how they did it. If they won't tell you, copy them.
Yes. So that's part of getting mentors.
You can have like I said, a mentor is great, and I fully endorse getting a mentor. It can be relatively difficult, but just find someone that is where you'd like to be in a year. What I've found is that if people have got to a level of success that you admire them for, a level of admiration from you, then they probably got there with help from other people. They didn't do it alone. And when that happens, they're pretty reciprocal in as far as turning around and offering one hand back down to someone else because it happened to them. I've written people handwritten letters. I was at a big conference once, a seminar, and a guy, for some reason, he was an amazing speaker. I won't say his name, an amazing speaker, but he read out his address. He talked some story and just randomly told his address. I just scribbled it down in my notes for that day, and I wrote him a handwritten letter and said that he inspired me, and I really admired what he was doing and the results he was having and that he was getting and the impact he was having. And I wrote, would he mind having a catch up? And then about 3 weeks later, I got a text from him, and my heart fluttered like I was a 15-year-old girl getting a text from my crush, and holy moly, and we caught up, and it was amazing, and we've caught up 3 times since, and it was unbelievable. Just find someone that is doing or has done what you'd like to do and ask them how to do it, and if they won't tell you, just copy them.
Amazing. And so staying on the theme of taking steps towards achieving your goals, what about scheduling? And I know that there's a lot of stuff surrounding scheduling, and I am awful at it. But my wife is a lot better. How do you do it in terms of daily, but weekly and monthly as well? Yeah.
Well, I mean, productivity is such a big topic, and I think that it's essential. You've got to sort of understand that I hate this. I hate busyness. I'm never busy. The idea of being, if you're busy, it's a result of poor planning. If you're busy, you've designed it poorly in the first place. You need to take a step back. You shouldn't be busy. People talk about, I don't work hard, I work smart, all this kind of stuff. Like, do both. Like, work smart and hard. Like, be really productive. And hey, I'm not perfect of it, and I'm not sitting here in any of this stuff. I'm very much a student of this, and I think that's the mindset I'll always have. But I'm constantly learning, and I think that hey, there's some things you can do to be more productive, but I think you have to have the discipline to do it. It doesn't matter what it is, but I always talk about doing a lot. I set a goal of reading 8 books this year. Reading 8 books is, and what traditionally what most people do is with a New Year's resolution, for example, or a goal, is they wait till December and they go, holy crap, like, I haven't done anything, and then they'll frantically start, for this one, for example, reading books and try and read 8 books so they can tick off their New Year's resolution. But I do a lot. I read 10 minutes of a book every day. Easy as that. Last year I read 17 books, just by doing that. So, I think that trying to do too much is detrimental. It doesn't work. You have to do it, and it's not sustainable. You might be able to do it for 2 or 3 weeks. My wife and I, we're in a gym now, and like I said before, and it's so obvious in our industry. When the weather starts to warm up in the summer months, people come rushing in and say, I need a bikini body, I need a six pack, whatever it is, and they just go flat out for 3 weeks doing everything they can, and then we never see them again. It's not sustainable. If you want a six pack, do 100 sit-ups a day for a year. Do a little, a lot, and I think that's the way. Once you've got your plan, you've got to put it into action steps, but break that down, just do little things often. That's really the best way to do it, I think, and be disciplined to do it. If you've got a plan, you need to have the discipline to follow it.
Totally. And I want to interject here with something that I've talked about before, and that my wife Ruth talks about on her course, Piano Picnic, for learning piano. And in fact, I think in the episode 4 of this podcast, we talk about it. And it's called micro practice. And it's the same principle, a little often. So every day doing 10 minutes, and it totally applies to instruments. And we both say that it's the most effective way to learn when you are learning an instrument. Instead of doing 3 hours of drums every day, or 3 hours of drums once a week or once a month, and then you burn yourself out, you don't want to play drums for ages. Yeah, do 20 minutes a day, do 30 minutes a day, do 10 minutes, just do whatever you can every single day, but keep it every single day. And eventually, you'll get into this habit, and you might do a little bit more, and I think that's definitely the way to do it, and it applies across the board. It does add up, yeah. It
adds up, and it has a compounding effect as well. You know what I mean? Like I said, it sort of adds on ads on ads. Like the reading, for example. If I sat down to read 17 books last year, I'm not a fast reader, that'd take me forever. But if you break it down and you just do 10 minutes a day, it becomes a lot more manageable. A lot of people set goals around weight loss, for example. Again, I'm in the fitness industry. People are like, I want to lose 10 kilos. Let's change that goal. Go to the gym for 20 minutes every day. Don't worry about the weight will take care of itself if you do that. You know what I mean? And again, the same if you said that you wanted to get better at podcasting, just do it often. Do it all the time. Do it, just practice interviews. That's how you get better at things, and doing a little bit often, and that little often adds up. If you spend 10 minutes a day reading, I don't even know what that is, I can work it out. Multiply that over 10 years, you know what I mean? Multiply that over a lifetime, multiply it over the next 40 years of your 50, 60 years of your life. It becomes just, imagine if you played drums every day for 10 minutes for the next 30 years. Imagine how good you'd be.
Yeah, really good. And it's something that I wish that I had done when I was kind of applying myself to learning drums.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing. It's only reserved for the experience, unfortunately.
Okay, so what's the difference between goals and dreams?
A goal is just a dream with a plan. Maybe that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A dream's cool, and hey, that's great. If you want to be the biggest band in the world or the most successful, whatever it is, that can be a dream, but it's a dream if you do nothing about it. If it's a dream if you always think about it but never take action. It's a dream if you never actually find out how to do it. It's a dream if it just sort of you lie awake thinking about it at night and you close your eyes and you see yourself doing that. And that's wonderful. But if you set a plan in motion, all of a sudden it's attainable. It's a goal. And I think that I don't know. That's that's just something that's come out, but I think that's probably a good a distinction between the two, and I think that dreams are completely possible if you break them down. Like I said, being the best drummer in the world might be the dream, but why don't you just focus on playing drums for 10 minutes every day, and the rest will probably take care of itself.
Yeah, man. Okay, that's just wiped the floor with everything else I was going to talk about. That's perfect. What about in the musician sense? Do we all have the same dreams when we're starting out? Do we all want to be successful? And do we all want to be famous? Is it okay to not want that?
Yeah, I think, again, that's a good question. And I think that a lot of people, I remember definitely thinking about it a lot when I was in the band. But what I've really learned, and what is, if people can really take this away, that would be the one thing I'd recommend, is to define what success looks like to you. Like it is, success is contextual. Like it actually is what you would define as successful, someone else might not think is. What I would define as successful, you might consider not at all. And that's fine, because you have to be really self-aware and go, all right, this is what success looks like for me. This is what, at the time when I was in the band, like I was the same as everyone else. Like I just wanted to be famous. I just wanted to be on tour and have a tech for my guitar and, and be in a bus and party with my friends all day and get paid for it and like play these huge shows and all that kind of stuff. That was to make it, that was my version of success. But it was funny when I got to the end of, sort of wanting to go away, I actually wrote an article about it. Maybe I can send it to you. But it's about, it was sort of a look back at my sort of 8 years in the band. And, what I probably found out was that I did make it. You know what I mean? Like when I define success looking back, like I spent 8 years with my best friends, like playing shows that were far bigger than we ever thought possible when we first started out. Like I traveled the country with them. We got opportunities that never would have come about if the three of us hadn't have met. We got to do and see and go places that wouldn't have even, I got to meet you, for example, like that wouldn't. I've met people, and people are in my life now that have a wonderful effect on it, purely because I played music with those two guys. And ironically, like I said, hindsight's a luxury reserved for the experience. Like it was ironically, in hindsight, I realized that I actually did make it. You know what I mean? I was successful. We had an amazing time doing what we did, and I think that's important for people. It's easy to do it looking backwards, but you can do it looking forwards. You can reverse engineer it as well. What does success look like for you? And it's different for everyone. And for like I'll read you my definition of success. How my life plays out. I've got again, I'm pretty active with my journaling and bits and pieces. I might have to bring it up on my phone, and this can change as well. I think it's important to understand that what I would consider successful when I was 15 years old is not what I would consider successful now at 31. When I was 15, I just wanted to, hook up with girls and play drums all day. I was a drummer back then. That's all I wanted to do. That was success. That was cool. But and now, like I definitely wanted. I've got a wife for one, and you know what I mean. Like it's just different, and it changes. And I think it's important to acknowledge that what is important to you can change. But so I've divided my version of success into different themes. So I've got income, adventure, love, health, connection, career, and contribution. So I want to establish and maintain multiple streams of passive income. I want to spend a quarter of every year traveling, maintain a successful and incredibly loving relationship with Sally, maintain a very healthy and active lifestyle, stay in contact and maintain strong connection with all family and friends, maintain a highly successful and fulfilling career that changes lives, contribute back, radiate positivity, and inspire others. And that's that's my success. And that's not specific, you know what I mean? I mean, some of them are, but it's not, maintain strong relationships with family and friends. Like that is I don't think I'll ever get there. You know what I mean? I don't think doesn't have an end point. That's just, like it's a mode of traveling almost. It's a northern star sort of thing, that if I can do that. And when I look at my life, and it's like, all right, well, I'm like 90% there, like, and when you know that, you can sort of look at it and go, well, that's my version of success, and I'm 90% there, like, awesome.
Yeah,
I should be happy. I am happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's really important to acknowledge what successful looks like for you, and that version of success might be absolute catastrophic failure for someone else.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like if someone else's life turned out like that, they would be so unhappy, and that's fine. We're different, and everyone's different. And I would just encourage people to define what's important to them, and that's what I've done. I've taken all the things that are important to me, I put them into those categories. Love, connection, career, health, contribution, adventure, income. Put them into categories, and then defined in those categories what success would be for me.
Yeah. Okay, that's incredible. I have a definition that I just stick to, that I wrote when I was writing the Musician's Map book, and it's in that book. measure success by your own happiness and how happy you make others. And that's something that I defined for myself. And I think it can apply to a lot of people, but personally, that's how I keep reminding myself when my kind of confidence wavers on whether I am being successful or not, or reaching towards the success that I want. I remind myself just by that one sentence. And I want to talk a bit further about how your ideas of success can change. And maybe I'll share a little bit about how my idea of success has changed over a few years. And it was when I left New Zealand and moved to London, my idea of success, I was 23, maybe 24. My idea of success was to be a highly thought of, renowned studio recording engineer. And I wanted to join a band or form a band, write music, and make a living, and quite a successful living off that, and be able to travel the world making money as a musician. So I get to London. I try to be an audio engineer for a couple of years, and then I realize I really don't want that lifestyle. That's just not for me, Okay, so that goes out, and there's conflicting emotions to that, but whatever. And then so you continue trying to do the band thing, and then you achieve some measure of it, and you fail in some other measures, and then I end up looking back at it and going, what would be successful to me is to make a really good record. And then, you make the record, and then sort of maybe you feel like overall you didn't quite achieve the success that you wanted, but you'll look back now and it's the same sort of thing as you.
Yeah.
I'll say, you know what? I spent 8 years of my life living overseas, traveling Europe, playing in bands, making money, making records, meeting people, like having an amazing time and making art and being able to do that. And I feel so fortunate. And so I actually look upon it as a total success, even though my definition of success changed throughout the journey.
Yes.
So I guess what I really want to get at is, is it okay for your definition of success to change, and how do we deal with that kind of thing?
I don't even think that it's okay. I think it's essential. I think that it has to change, and again, you have to be, like if you magnify that and just say like, what was important to you when you were 7, and what's important to you when you're now, like, of course it's going to be different. Like, what I mean? And the same happens because we change. What I mean? You're a different person than you were a few years ago. I'm a different person than I was, and everyone listening is as well. And I think that you have to expect that it's going to change because you've changed. As you grow older, certain things become more important to you. All of a sudden, you realize that you're getting older and you're not going to live forever. And you say, oh, well, probably taking care of my health is actually important to me. Whereas, when you're 16, 17, 18, it's just such a low priority for you. You're like, I'm invincible. I'm going to live forever. And then all of a sudden you turn 30 and you're like, holy moly, I remember being like getting in trouble at high school. It was like last week, and now I'm 30 years old. And then you get to 40 and you go, oh, I better start. Health and fitness is important to me, or whatever it is. I think that we go through stages, and it is important to reassess that as well. And that's just being self-aware, because there's nothing sadder than someone pursuing something so blindly that they forget that it's not even important to them anymore. Yeah. I think that's it's really sad, and it's a real shame when someone is so caught up in doing what they're trying to do that they forget to take a step back and go, all right, well, why is it I'm doing this? They're so focused on what they're trying to do that they sort of lose touch with the rest of life. Because and you often see it in the business world, for example, when people become so obsessed with their job and they work so hard that it starts to sacrifice other parts of their life. And I guess the same would be, with a musician or listeners here, that sometimes people, you become so focused on what you're doing that's why my version of success has so many different layers. Because if I had a really healthy and active lifestyle, but Sally left me, I wouldn't, because I was so obsessed with the gym and eating healthy that I lost that, then that's not successful. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think that you've got to be, self-awareness is probably one of the most underrated traits in people these days. I think that if you can sort of be aware of what's important to you, at that time, and make sure you're working towards that. I think that's a real key. If you're just banging your head against the wall because trying to do something just because you wrote it down as a goal a year ago, like, you're wasting your time. Pivot. Pivot is good. Doesn't have to change. You can just pivot, which is what you did. You went over to London with those goals and aspirations, which is great. And you didn't give up on them, and you didn't fail. You moved. You're still moving forwards. I think it's a really cool analogy. If you still imagine yourself moving forward, but maybe going in a slightly different direction. But as long as that direction resembles forward, then I think it's a good thing. I think that if you just sat over there now and you were still hammering away doing the things you were doing purely because you wrote that was your initial goal, I think that it would be a waste of your time, because what you got to do and what you're doing now is far more aligned with where you want to be now.
Yeah, exactly, and it's good for personal happiness as well, because no one's happy just banging away at the same thing over and over again when it's not working. But now we've come to that. What about failure? Now, it seems it's a big scary word for a lot of people. It was for me. I'm sure it is for a lot of musicians. How do we deal with failure? And how do we move on from it? And why is it? I think failure is incredibly important. Why is it so important?
Yeah, good. It's a big topic.
Yeah.
Failure. I guess it's again, what I think is important to realize is, just like success is contextual, it changes person, so does failure. You know what I mean? Like, like if the Rolling Stones released an album and they considered it a failure, it would probably be the biggest success you and I, if we'd released an album and had done that, it would be the biggest success of our entire lives. You know what I mean? It's just, the result's same. It's just the way it's viewed that's different. So I think that, again, that failure is contextual. But another version, I think that it's essential. I think that like, if you're not, you've got to expect to not get the results you want at sometimes. If you define failure as not getting the results you want, then that's fine. But if you can, it's cliche and it's hard to understand, and it's taken me years to comprehend, but failure is only yourself saying that it was a failure. And that sounds like I'm not trying to be airy-fairy here. What I mean is that if you can honestly tell your story that wasn't a failure, that there's opportunity from it, then all of a sudden it changes. It loses the connotation that word has. Like, for example, could I say that my band failed because we didn't make it? Yes, technically, the original thing that we set out to do, we failed. We didn't get there. But in hindsight, there was so much more that came out of that it wasn't, that us not making it was probably better. It would have been, I wouldn't be where I am today or doing the things I'm doing today if the band had made it. And I find a lot of value in knowing that. I had an accident in 2011 and broke both my kneecaps, and I was in hospital. Was in a wheelchair for a long time, and was told I'd never run again. And is that a failure? I don't know. It's definitely an average situation to be in. But I thought it was the worst thing that had ever happened to me, literally. And it turns out it was the most defining thing that ever happened to me. The things that happened because of that have changed my life. So, I think that failure is just, it's a necessary step. I wouldn't even say it's a necessary evil, because it's not evil if you can take opportunity for it. Sure, we've all done things that have failed or haven't worked out the way we want to, but I think that if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. And again, that's a cliche, and we're so used to hearing those things. But if you actually consider that, the more I've failed, the more I've succeeded. That makes sense. It's an odd sort of statement, but it's easy and comfortable doing what you're already good at. You've got to where you are today by doing what you're already good at. Trying to push the boundaries of what you're good at, you're going to fail, but also, as much as you fail, you'll also succeed, because you're trying new things. And if you want things to be different, you are where you are today because of exactly all the decisions you've made in your life currently and the things you've done. If you want something different, then you've got to do something different. And that is part of that is going to be failing. Yeah,
it is. I want to just quickly put that in perspective. Maybe for musicians, something as simple even as having a gig. I know plenty of my gigs have failed, You show up and something goes terribly wrong, or no one shows up. But you always learn from that failure, and you even can use it as a platform to push on from, and to sort of. And
I want to say that. I don't want to interrupt you, but you said, you always learn. You don't always learn. It's a failure if you don't learn from it. All right. So if you put on a gig and no one turns up, it's not a failure. You've just learned how to not put on a gig. You know what I mean? You've learned the opposite of what to do. So if you don't learn that, and if you put on a gig the next week and no one turns up, that's that's failure, because you haven't learned from what happened last week. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not if you put on a gig or whatever it is, if you play a show or record an album, whatever it is, and nothing happens, all you've done is you've just learned how not to do it. And if you go, all right, what are the things we did in that? All right, well, we didn't put the show on Facebook, we didn't do posters, we didn't approach this. Like, all right, well, next time, let's do the things we didn't do, and hope. And then if it works the next time, or next time you get one person, it's like, all right, well, now we've learned how to do a show with one person. If we were to, what's the next stage? And it's only a failure if you don't take something out of it. Even it's as hard as it is, the worst things that can happen to you, and sometimes it can be horrible, it can be everything you've had. You can put your blood, sweat, and tears into things, and it doesn't work out the way you want it to do. But if you can say, all right, why did that happen, and what do I know not to do next time, you can take that and make it a lesson, and it makes you better.
Wow. Matty, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
Yeah, look, if there's one thing that, again, I've said this earlier, but if there's one thing that people could take away from this, I think that it's being, I talk about self-awareness a lot, but it's being really aware of, we live in the greatest era of opportunity in human history. We do, and I think that we have no right to make excuses about things. You think of the tools, the information, the technology, the resources you have available today, whatever endeavor that you're pursuing, whether it's music or business or life, or what we have available to now, what's available to us now is infinitely more than was available 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 years ago. Like, we have no right to make excuses for anything we're doing. The decisions you've made in your life have got you to exactly where you are right now. If you want something different or better, you've got to make different decisions. And like I said before, if you want something, go and find someone that's already done it and ask them how to do it. If you want to learn a new skill, like, there's a wonderful website called Google. Go to it, open it up, type in how to, and then follow those first two words with what you'd like to learn. And it will come back with thousands, not even hundreds, thousands of different websites that'll teach you that. It doesn't matter whether you want to make a coffee, cook broccoli, learn guitar, run a podcast, own a business, change the world. There is literally thousands of websites dedicated to all these different things. That is an opportunity that I get frustrated that people say that I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I don't have the resources, I don't know the right people. Like, if you've got a phone, if you've got an internet connection, and I guess that anyone that's listening to this does, like, you have no reason to make excuses for why you're not getting to where you want to go. Like, take action. Stop telling yourself the story that that I've missed out, or like, I got a really harsh upbringing, or I didn't get to go to the right schools, or like, you just have to shut up, like, and deal with it. Like, that's happened. People have done more with less than you've got right now. And it's really important to acknowledge that. Oprah's got an amazing story. Look into Oprah's story. If she can get to where she has now from where she started, then you can sure as hell do whatever it is you need to do in the next 10, 20 years. Like, there's no reason for anyone to be sitting here making excuses. We live in the greatest era of opportunity in human history. Take advantage of that and tell yourself a different story.
Woo! Awesome stuff. Thank you so much, mate. You've been absolutely amazing, inspirational, and I know that so many people have gotten so much out of this.
Cool. Hey, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I hope that some people have got something out of it. And if I can ever do anything to help anyone, I always say, please just get in touch. I'm more than happy to do whatever I can.
And that's the podcast for this week. Thank you so much to my guest, Matty Lovell. You can find out more about Matty via his website, mattylovell.com, and his Facebook page, Earth to Matty. Matty is also involved in the Earth to India campaign, which will see him and 2 other guys drive a 7-horsepower rickshaw 3,000 kilometres across India, with the goal of inspiring people, changing the world, and raising $50,000 for charity. Make sure to visit earthtoindia.com and show them some support by donating. You can find links to everything I've mentioned here in the podcast description. Matty's choice for the Artist of the Week this week is Chase and Status and their song Alive, which you can find on the album Brand New Machine. Check them out at chaseandstatus.co.uk. This podcast and my site musiciansmap.org is dedicated to sharing knowledge and advice about music and the music industry, although evidently I do go off on tangents every now and then. What it's all about is honesty and positive progress. My experience and the experience and advice of my guests is yours to learn from. There are no hidden meanings, ambiguous statements, or industry secrets, just people helping each other to be better and achieve results. Much of my experience, advice, and information is condensed into both ebook and audiobook form, both of which are available on the website, as well as Amazon and Audible, respectively. In the book, I discuss every aspect of learning music, from listening and learning an instrument to recording, gigging, touring, and making money as a musician. You can get a free sample of both the ebook and the audiobook on the Musicians Map website. For those of you wanting to get serious or looking for more immediate results, I offer one-on-one development sessions and song critiques. These are intensely focused super sessions designed to provide clarity and purpose to achieving your goals. I've also got a ton of free stuff, including a free 5-step challenge, free cheat sheets and checklists of all kinds, articles and videos, so head to musiciansmap.org to take advantage of all of the resources on offer. I spend a few hours every week on places like Quora and Reddit, answering questions, giving advice, and offering any support that I can. If you'd like to ask a question or need some advice, join the Musicians Map Facebook group. Every week I'll pick a few questions to answer personally, so join up and speak up. I love hearing from you. Thanks for listening and stay positive.